So, Catalytic is committed to building inclusive, vibrant places to work and to learn, where people can do what they do best every day. Our Lunch and Learn webinars are an open space to connect and share our learning and insights with yours. And we are really keen to hear from you. So, welcome. Today, we want to help you help engineers hack their well-being. We were triggered to do this work when we saw that engineers are not accessing the support for well-being or bad mental health until it got to be really, really serious. Jo-Anne and I connected through the literature a few years ago, and we feel that it's never been more important to ensure that engineers have got the right tools to hack their own well-being than now. So when we were doing our respective pieces of research, what did we find? We found none of the programs offer the tools to anticipate how to get unstuck when you're stuck. None of the programs providing support offer a positive psychology approach. And none of the programs speak to innate problem solvers, thinkers, or those who are less skilled in emotional chat. I kind of like to think of it, it's a bit like taking a paracetamol for your headache when you've been stuck in a stuffy room all day with no daylight, when the reality is you need to get out, take a break and get a bit of fresh air. And the main point we want to make is knowing what's right for you. How can you hack your well-being? What makes it work? I'm Jan Peters. I'm the founder and director of Catalytic. It's a consulting and training company that's dedicated to building strong teams with happy people. And I'm committed to a learner mindset, love a growth mindset, but a learner mindset is really about what have I seen, what have I read, who have I spoken with, and what can I do differently? But it's been career long thing that I've been involved in, which is transferring great things between education and academia and industry, both directions, whether it's technology or professional and people skills. So it's doing it in both directions.
And I'm Jo-Anne Tait. Judith knows me quite well. I'm a principal lecturer at Robert Gordon University, and I've been studying mental health and well-being of engineering students and engineering more broadly for about 7 or 8 years now. Before that, I did a lot with student support of engineering students. And what really I was picking up back then was that they weren't asking for help at all until it was very late and they were either very ill or had failed or both at a load of things. And it was very difficult to step back from where they'd got to. So from a uni point of view, there was a practical kind of rather commercial point of this is if these people are failing and we can prevent that by early intervention, that's great. But also being able to equip engineering students and make sure that they have those skills and tools that they need, and also to be able to have a wider or open conversation around mental health and well-being. And so my kind of goal was to make it easier for people and make it normal to talk about mental health and well-being on a daily basis, as and when required, without judgment or stigma. So that's really what I've been pushing for for a long time. And I'm glad that we talk about it now. I'm glad we have these opportunities to do more and to a wider audience.
Amazing, thank you. And I remember when I found your literature review for your transfer thesis was sort of like,
Mhm.
wow, someone else is looking at this because
Yeah.
at that point in 2021 only found 17 academic papers looking at early career researchers
Yeah.
and well-being, which was really quite alarming to me. I was really surprised. What am I missing as I've scoped out my references?
And
And
it
so,
was, sorry to butt in there,
yeah,
like it's quite interesting that because I looked, I couldn't find anything at all. And it took me ages to find those 17 because different people were looking at different aspects. They were skirting around it the whole time. And now, over the past 7 years, like, it has really started to come to the forefront. Sorry, Jan, just butted
no,
right in.
thank you. I think that's really important to know that we both found this separately, that we've not missed something. And
Yeah.
I was doing a workshop. I've done several with companies, R&D manufacturing teams in the last few months, and knowing that the stresses that people are finding in undergraduate, postgraduate, postdoc spaces is is still there. The anxiety, the pressure, the financial stress that's causing people to be not in control of what they
Mm.
can do, is that we really need to be talking about this in this space and understand who the people are in this engineering, technology, academic science research space, and ensure that they've got access to the right tools and the language. And I think one of my things that I've really pushed for over the last 15 years has been about making sure that in the engineering professional skills, we understand that people are so central to it, enabling them to be their best, but giving them the right toolkit. And it's just not fair to push people into work, to manage teams, to lead people, to lead organizations, that they don't have that, they're not equipped with the right confidence. So what today's workshop is really about, a webinar is for you if you want to understand how and why engineering is different and how to recognize and address mental health challenges. It's for you if you want to hear about the RGU Echo resource and the Catalytics Resilience Navigator tool, and you want to expand the conversation and generally potentially influence AHEP and UK spec requirements about creating competent professional engineers. But also, what can you do to support your engineers and how can we help you? So I think in our first webinar that we did a few weeks ago, we talked about the research and the literature. So I'd urge you to go back and look at that. It's on the Catalytic YouTube channel, and I've also posted it on LinkedIn. I'm sure you've reshared it, Jo-Anne. So, Jo-Anne, tell us, what did you notice about engineers that was different?
I think it was funny because like if you're immersed in a culture, you don't see something until someone else actually points it out to you. And it was when I've always been interested in supporting mental health of students generally. It's just a topic that is close to my heart. And it was when I went to an applied suicide intervention skills training course, when I said where I worked, the leader of the course said, "Oh my God, that is fascinating. Engineers are a disaster." And and I was like, no, they're not. We're fine. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with us. Thank you very much. Perfectly logical people. But it shocked me her reaction to that. And then she's worked in the Aberdeen's oil and gas industry for certainly until fairly recently. Those students, those engineers that she worked with in industry were demonstrating different behaviours to the students that I was observing anyway. And there were things like presenteeism, alcoholism, absence, illness, stress, but not being written down as stress, being written down as heart issues, blood pressure, lots and lots of physiological things happening. And her role in that was a slightly different thing, but she had observed all of these happenings in engineers, particularly. And that gave me pause, as it would. And I talked to my counselling team. I call everything mine, by the way. I don't own the counselling team, the counselling department, student life. And they said, "Oh, we don't really hear much from engineers, so we kind of figured they're okay." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" So, well, they've got the smallest, lowest rate of help seeking across the university. So, less than five will have sought counselling from the student life department in comparison to much larger numbers elsewhere. And that made me think, well, maybe they're fine. Great then. But then I'm looking at all of the work that we give them and all of the assessments and the assessments that they miss and the kind of celebration of stress that was going on. And I was kind of in all of this, celebrating it to myself, thinking, I think we've gone wrong here. I think something's not right. And I have to say that in the beginning, uh, I wasn't really hugely believed or supported right at the beginning of this journey. It was a case of my engineering colleagues, not all, but enough engineering colleagues saying, "What's wrong? We've all had to go through this. They just need to learn. They just need to go. They just need to get on with it. We
That
we
like
all do this.
a
We're
badge
all
of
stressed.
the
Badge
badge
of
of
honor.
honor.
Um, and so I thought, well, maybe I felt a little bit gaslit as I thinking, oh, maybe I'm just too warm and fluffy. Maybe that's the thing. Um, but then a staff member shared with me his suicide plan. And I didn't know what to do with that because I'd had my training, but until someone says that to you, you think, well, oh, right, okay. I thought we were all making fun of Joe now, but you're actually telling me this is a thing that you have. You have a plan. You're not planning to do that today, but if it's time, you've got that all set. And I find that very stark and very impactful. And it just made me push harder and harder. Now that staff member is in another sorry, in another place. He has moved to a different industry now. But that open conversation about how he felt was really made me think, I think we're just relying on this lack of help seeking to say actually they're fine. No one's asking for any help. Everyone's getting on okay. And actually, this is critical stuff. So there were other incidents that I won't go into now that I mentioned before that just kept validating everything that I was thinking about. So I sorry, I've gone a bit off piste there in terms of what I was observing. So other things that I was observing was that our students and our staff needed certainty at all times. All answers had to be right. If they're not right, they are wrong. There's no grey area of wrong. The error or margin of error for anything was so tiny that anything that didn't sort of fit what the expectation was caused problems. And there was this kind of such a need for definitive answers that doesn't. I think the notion of mental well-being was a bit of a clash because that is a broad thing. It's a range. You're not going to be, well, I'm 10 well-being today. It just doesn't work
Mhm.
like that. Um, I do think that things are getting better from when I started this in 2017, when I started looking at this properly. Um, and I think that post-COVID times, there has been a move to being more open. There is more acceptance. I do see that there's less stigma outwardly. I don't think we've cracked the inward self-stigma
Mhm.
yet. I don't think we can do that this afternoon, but I think that's something that we need to kind of work on with everybody. Um, I think I'll stop talking there because
So
I get very passionate about this, as you know, Jan. So
yeah, but now that's why we need to
yeah,
talk around it. And
yeah,
what I'm hearing you say both today, but also before, is that engineers are innately just problem solvers, and
yes,
part of that problem is that the way that we're training engineers to be these logical, not quite automatons, but we're logical human beings that we're here to sort out problems, find these
yeah,
tricky solutions to these wicked problems, but we're focused on hard work. We're taking this badge of honor for having to work hard, and that we think we see seeking help as support as cheating somehow.
yes. I've seen that, and there are countless examples of discussions that I've had with staff and students where if a student has asked for help, then back in the dark days of this research, it was, well, again, we have to get through this. We had to do it. They'll just have to do it. That they're just, they just need to get on with it, and kind of a lack of sympathy, which is surprising considering the environment that we actually are in education, which is to help people learn things. And if someone's mental health and or well-being is so poor that they are not able to learn as well, that's something that is on us to do something about. And obviously not fix everything for people, but we should be able to have conversations that don't diminish someone else's experience.
I think it's one of the things I found in the workshops that I've done. I created a program for Warwick called Positive Start for their early
Mm.
research community, early career research community. And it was this loneliness, this isolation, but this fear that by going and asking for help was this admission of failure. They were
Yeah.
worried it would get put on their record and that they weren't really up to it. I can see Judith nodding your head there.
Yeah.
And these are systemic problems and challenges. And
I
that,
think there's one other thing around that, around this sort of help seeking and the support services. I know we're going to talk about echo and all the other things we can do later, but when I talked with students about why they didn't go and seek help with what we have, so we've got amazing counselling service, we've got loads and loads of help, and actually because I pointed them in the direction, they made sure that there was space for engineers because they were more difficult to or hard to reach is the term at the moment. But what I got back from those students wasn't that they didn't want the help. It was they felt their need was less than the other students. They said, I'm not as bad. I don't think I'm as bad. And that was, to be honest, that was a surprise for me because I work with engineers all day, every day. So I was thinking, oh, empathy for other people. That's a new one. Excellent. So I'm making joke of it, but they genuinely felt that their need was lesser than other people's, which is entirely wrong. That's not what the service is for. Sorry, I will stop talking
no,
now, Jen.
no, not at all. I think it's hearing your perspective is really interesting for me, and I hope for everybody else too. So yeah, mental health challenges are things that happen to other people, but we're in the engineering discipline. We're problem solvers. We can fix it. We can sort it. We can own it. But I think one of the things I've noticed, and we were talking about the other day, is how when your well-being starts drifting downwards, we
Mm,
don't have an analytical tool to unpick what it is that needs fixing. We don't know what we can do, but also it's a kind of like an insidious slide. And because, like you mentioned earlier, it's like being the goldfish in the bowl. You're
yeah.
just swimming around. You're not realizing the water's getting polluted, and you're feeling worse and worse and worse. And how can we kind of understand what is going on? Because we don't think it's any different because it's been such a gradual slip. But I'm really curious for you to share a little bit more in detail about the RGE approach, about what makes a difference. What is it that is different than anything else that you've seen that's been created?
I think for RG, we've been making or I made with lots of people, including Judith actually, RGU Echo, which is a co-design. So when we, Mark, I'm not sure about your uni background, but co-design is very much all about participation and involve. If you're going to design something, it has to have the people who are going to use it in the room while you're doing that. So that it was co-designed with engineering students across the UK. It was also co-designed with engineering staff, counselling staff, mental health nurses, student life more broadly, and also my PhD supervisor was in there just to make sure I was doing my job properly. And what we quickly got down to was the students um, wanted something that they could uh, use that met their needs in a particular order. And that spoke to their problem solving. They actually, is it A or B? B, is it B? So this kind of biscuit trail or breadcrumb trail, I think computing people call it, around how to get the help. So we designed the website, and it really is, I mean, it's just a website when it comes down to it, but it is a website that has been designed for engineers to go, do you know what? I need help in the next 10 minutes, actually. It's quite urgent. So first of all, the students get, do you need help absolutely right now, as in phoning an ambulance or the Samaritans or getting a hold with a 24/7 helpline? Are we talking about the next 10 minutes because we're freaking out because this thing is not working and I'm stressed and I've hit a wall? Or is it more broadly, I've been feeling XYZ for a period of time, I really need to look into it more. So it's actually set out in a kind of triage, problem solving route that gives all the quick fix stuff up front. And all of that is evidence based on research that has been done on engineering students, because one of the things that I kept hearing was that whatever will not work on me. I'm an engineer. And I'm saying this with love before, because always people think that I might be ripping into engineers. I am not. I absolutely love engineers. But that won't work on me. This breathing technique won't work on me. This hydration won't work on me. I'm an engineer. And it's taken me like 7 or 8 years to now be able to challenge that to these two people and say, do you have a nervous system? Do you have blood going around your body? Do you have a brain? Do you require oxygen? Well, all of these things are the same in everyone else. But for the purposes of getting them to do the thing, all of the four quick interventions have all been tested on university students and proven to not only improve mental health and well-being, but actually improve results, which is often sometimes the easier sell is actually, if you do this, your exam results will get better. Brilliant. And then we'll, build up the longer term interventions that we could do. The longer part of this, part of the website, is the kind of need a bit more area. And that's where we kind of dive a little bit more into, say, like anxiety disorder or addictions or whatever. There's a whole host of them in there. And they have been designed, and the topics were raised by engineering students, and the information in there is like a general overview. Just that's what this is: how to recognize a problem. So if you're thinking, well, I might have an alcohol problem, it then gives you a list of, are these things happening to you? And on the right hand side of it, it's, here are the things, here are the places you can go that will be able to help you with that thing. So it's organized in a way that, in a similar way to how we would organize learning for engineers. So it should be a place, and it's also devoid of any lovely pictures or really or anything. It is quite utilitarian. So for me as a geologist, it doesn't look pretty, but it absolutely does the job. So what we've seen from that is that people are seeking help earlier. We see that in forms like extension forms or deferrals. People are actually being actively more open about their mental health, are actually going to go into counselling. And so we feel that it's not it's not like the panacea for everything, but being able to say, do you know what, this is so important. We've dedicated all of this time and space to this thing. We know it's important and we're all in a journey. So I think that's the difference. I don't think that other universities are not doing things. Absolutely not. And there are things that we obviously want to share a bit more, but I do feel that Echo is particularly special because the student voice has been throughout, and still remains. I'll stop talking about Echo there. There's a way to say, like, I forgot about talking about the other part of this is that we're actually doing the workshop as well. So, well, we're having these webinars, but we're actually going to get to talk about this in person in Birmingham in the 26th of June. No? Yes. Yes. My brain sort of stopped working there entirely. So we're going to kind of go more into that, aren't we, Jan? I've just thrown you right in there. Sorry.
I was busy
Oh yeah,
typing
you're putting the
and I
thing
just
in.
put the link in the chat. So
Oh, fab.
we've sort of
So,
we're having a small face-to-face gathering where we're bringing people together so we can connect, share, and learn about the initiatives that are being used in different universities. But we can actually give people access to the resources that we've created
yeah,
over the last few years. And
absolutely.
so I think, yeah, so the way that I've been looking at and addressing well-being and resilience has kind of been built upon the work that I was doing when I started designing inclusion into the engineering education program. The integrated engineering program at UCL, which was about how can we help people in teams connect and communicate better? How can we make sure that at one level, men and women students are able to have the same quality of experience and learning, not just about the technology, but about how to connect and interact with other people, how to respect people for what they bring. And the tool that we introduced there was Clifton Strengths from the Gallup organization. And So over the last 15 years, I've been working pretty much exclusively with engineers, but also R&D teams in the private sector, crafting ways to thread inclusion into teams and organization. And from the work at UCL Engineering and working with the AHEP reviews and the UK spec, I knew that well-being primarily wasn't being talked about exactly the same as you found, Jo-Anne. And so the tools that I was using to build stronger teams, things like Clifton Strengths, radical candor, positive intelligences, saboteur assessment, these just aren't being used to help inform how we can navigate the tough times. And those are the kind of things I think this is crazy. We've got these resources, they've got these tools. Why aren't we using them? So the thing I tend to do, and I've always done all my career, is about connecting the dots, bringing different bits of information together, and then thinking, this could apply here, and then going finding some other information to fill the gap, so that I'm always innovating and creating. And the first point of call that really catalyzed a shift was Gallup also do a wellbeing at work book, which is they first did in 2012, but this actually looks, and the whole chapter dedicated to the 34 Clifton Strengths, and those help you think through the framework that Gallup developed from their research of the 5 pillars of well-being, which is your career, your physical well-being, your social well-being, your financial well-being, and what they found really interestingly, the most important is your community well-being. How connected do you feel to your community, whether that's in the workplace or where you live? And so that's about really practical measures that you can then do through a lens of Clifton Strengths. I know there are lots of other positive psychology tools around, like Strengths Profile and High Five. They all work in the same kind of way. Gallup did the original research. And so with a few other coaches, we dove into the Wellbeing at Work book and looked at how we could pull out and bring together the Clifton Strengths and the different characteristics that each strength has, which is, to Clifton, a strength is how you think, feel, and get things done. What's your innate way of being? So my innate way is about and horizon scanning, adding ideas onto other things, but also bringing people together. I'm really energized by bringing people together and understanding. It was a real wake-up moment for me when I was doing this big grid of the 5 pillars of well-being from Gallup's perspective with my activator strength. And I suddenly realized my physical well-being, I'm absolutely useless when it comes to managing physical well-being if I'm required to go for a run every other night, or like my husband does, he's great, he's got a routine of rowing in the garage and working out with kettlebells. Well, I will do it for a bit, but I have to book and go somewhere. I don't have to talk to anyone that's there, but it's that community, there's that connection with people. And at the rugby club, we created a mum's touch rugby team before COVID. And then I realized when I was reflecting on it that, I was involved in helping make it happen at the start. I was truly energized by it. And I was even more energized by the social connectivity and then supporting other people during lockdown when people were living on their own and they'd been kicked out by their partners, for example. So that was just amazing. And so that was the main starting point. And I was contacted by Nikki Knowles from the Warwick Manufacturing Group at Warwick University, who wanted to shape a program that we called Positive Start, really specifically looking at early career researchers and the research culture. And that really opened my eyes to the whole stress and anxiety. And I was very familiar with it because I've been working with PhD students at UCL for 10, 15 years, no, 10, 11 years. And it was less about the why is it an issue, but more about the what and what can we do. And that, using that positive psychology approach, I've now been adding to my learning, of course, because I'm a committed, forever learning kind of person. I added more stuff onto it, and I started noticing and listening to people speaking around the neuroscience of well-being and what's actually happening. And this is not just about well-being mental health, but this is generally around what happens when we get stressed, and the blood flow to our amygdala, the emotional center, the fight and flight center, which is exactly what you've just been talking about. It gets, all the blood goes to it, and the chimp that lives in your brain, Tom, according to Tom Peters, which is no relation, is really about, it's just going, hey, I can create havoc. And the problem is, as soon as that happens, we cannot access that higher functioning analytical center of our brain. And that's when we lose control and we can't manage our stress and anxiety. And so, what I found when I talk around that neuroscience piece, and we look at the chemicals that are released as you get more and more stressed and anxious, we can start to understand how we can then control it and calm our brain down. I've got in Clifton Strengths term, one of my themes is called command, which is the sort of kind of characteristic that I will step up when things are going wrong. I get calm under pressure, but the worst thing to ever say to me is calm down. So if someone says to me, calm down, my amygdala goes absolutely, it's in heaven. It's like, way, rage. But actually, what it is doing is knowing that what I'm doing physiologically, that I can control it. And over the years, I recently started doing yoga, and I've discovered the power of managing that sense of calm. But knowing my activator and what it's like, and reading things in the wellbeing at work book and putting pieces of information together, I realized that motion is the place where I can chill, whether it's out hiking or, as and this causes some engineers to really get the collywobbles, one of my most favorite times ever is about cycling a bike hands free. But not just that, I was one day a few years ago cycling along the promenade between Bournemouth and near where I live. It was 6 miles. It was a quiet spring day. It was cold. The sun was sparkling on the ocean. There weren't many people about. I cycled with my helmet on. Honestly, I always wear my cycle helmet. I was cycling hands free for 6 miles. And in that moment, I lost track of what was happening of time, because I'm looking for potential dangers. I'm scanning what's in front of me. I'm working all the time to balance and stay upright on my bike. And that allows my brain, other parts of my brain, to just chill and process information in a kind of in the background kind of way. So I think having that sense of what is happening to me has really helped to communicate to the engineers and scientists, to the really high IQ people that I work with, of, oh, it's not fluffy. I don't need to go and do a colouring book. I don't need to go and do mindfulness or any other thing that seems a bit touchy-feely. I've got a really practical, solution-oriented way I can take some ownership of what's going on in my body. And in the workshops that I've been running, I bring together this idea of how, when you are getting, you need a bit of stress to push you to increase your performance. But if you start getting too much, you can start stretching your strengths, and we can default to our automatic way of doing things. But noticing you're beginning to feel a bit anxious, a bit stressed, a bit, is being able to recognize it. And as soon as you then can do that, you think, what can I do to just give myself reprieve? How much effort do I need to do that? And what I've found for myself and other people is actually those moments can be quite small. But if you do it in a way of using your innate way of thinking, feeling, getting things done, all of a sudden it makes it manageable. And you know that by doing that in one of your innate ways that you're wired, means that you can get instant satisfaction, instant joy, an instant bit of dopamine or serotonin. If you are wired to be very connected to people, going and sitting on the grass and having a chat, actually, going and sitting in a coffee room, taking a piece of a paper, an article, to have a conversation with people, you get that moment, that connection. That's what your brain needs. For me, I need motion. I need to be able to know that if I just take 5 minutes out to go for a walk, sit on a swing seat, go on my bike, that gives me that power of pause. So knowing when I'm being stretched, knowing my symptoms, being able to then have a plan of things to do. Because if you've got a plan, suddenly it's not so difficult. Somebody posted on LinkedIn around about giving engineers this manual, like a pilot, and
Mm.
knowing what to do when things go wrong, when you get a particular error code. And it's like, so what we were trying to help people do is with the Resilience Navigator is give people that you've got an error code, what do you need to do? And of course, if you're on a plane and you get an error warning, you pull out your manual and what's happening, you can work through it. You've got a process. That process, that planning, that anticipation lowers the barrier to being able to connect with it. And so think, like you say, who can I turn to? Your kind of breadcrumb trail is really, really important. So it's creating these strategies, I think, is really good. So yeah, that's my kind of feel for what it is we need to do.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the pre-planning is something that does speak to people who are perhaps maybe not so comfortable with why not try mindfulness. And someone said that to me once a few years back, and when I was doing my own studies, and my response was not repeatable in a public forum. So someone tell me why not try mindfulness. It was very much why not something else. Thank you very much. That is not going to help me right now. I need something else. And actually to be able to encourage people to know themselves early on, particularly for me, it's in the engineering students, it's right from first year. As soon as they've got their bums on my seats, I want them to learn about themselves quickly because however stress-free we try to make a university degree, there is going to be stress. So we can't take it all out. There wouldn't be a degree there whatsoever. We try and make it reasonable and manageable. Um, but the more they know themselves and the more they know what they need, it will be easier to deploy it when they need it. So I think one thing that I found with, particularly in depression, from kind of mild to moderate depression, your brain will lie to you and tell you all sorts of things, one of which is, you're not depressed.
Yeah.
This is just a blip. You're fine. You won't notice you've got depression until you really are very, very, you're quite far down that road until you're sensitive to my depressed brain is starting to get depressed and I need to do something now because it will trick you and you'll ignore it. And I'm saying you, I mean me, but people will ignore it until such time as someone else goes, Joe, you're not yourself. You need to go and do a thing. And I was like, no, I'm fine. But it's my brain is lying to me when that's happening.
Mm.
And that's really tricky. So to have the plan ahead of time, if you do get to the point where someone says, Joe, there's, you're not yourself. I then have my plan and go, right, I'm going to have to do these things. And
Mm.
that's my way back out again. And helping people to get their own little plan, I think, is definitely one of the ways. This doesn't all have to be all communal and celebratory. It may just be a case of a list of 3 things that you have to do right now that's going to at least get you back to a position where you can make decisions better.
Yeah, I think that piece
Um,
about
yeah.
self-sabotage is
Oh,
absolutely
yeah.
spot on, and that's why we use the positive intelligence self-sabotage assessment. And the Shazad Hameen, who's created it, he's got some really great videos on YouTube, and he talks about these 10 the saboteurs, and the main one is the judge, and how he talks about how your saboteurs lie to you, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
so powerful. But he has this, one of his methods is of distracting the brain to calm the blood, reduce the blood flow. Is about one of them is the breathing, like doing box breathing, in for
Yeah.
4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. But the other is about texture and feeling things and finding what works for you. And it's like being in a meeting when someone across the table is like really, really irritating and winding you up, is actually just to feel the edge of the table and notice the textures, and it momentarily diverts your attention. So yeah, self-sabotage and the way that those saboteurs lie to you is it. So I just
I'm
quickly
smiling there. I think, yeah, I think I kind of like, oh, that's a good one. That's the table one. I'm
yeah,
never in meetings where I'm annoyed ever.
ever not.
I
Said
don't know what you're
nobody ever.
talking.
Yeah. Let me
I
just
think
show
it is
you.
funny, like while you
I'm just going to show
sorry, you
this
go.
navigator again. I'm hoping, well, maybe people are interested to see the navigator resilience navigator worksheet. So hopefully that's showing it to you there, showing you the whole window. So it's literally about anticipating challenges and strategies, knowing some bit of definitions at top. But this is to be done when you're feeling great about yourself. So what are you drawn towards? I use typically Clifton Strengths or any of the other strength-based tools that are around, and understanding what your capacity is, what are you really capable of, what is your brilliance, what is your inner essence, and then what challenges you for the better. How can you stay grounded and ready to recover? So reach recovery, red flags, and then revive. I think sometimes, just as you mentioned, having that kind of um, nudge from somebody to say that you're not yourself today, and then it might be just something we need to do for other people. But again, it's that also, what can you let go of? And then it's like having an action, writing a letter to yourself, anticipating a future challenge and how you deal with it is is really, really powerful. And I think everybody should have that and it's tucked away, whether it's on their phone, on their home screen, or in a notebook or a digital platform like Penzu. And then I love using this analytical approach to helping people understand when they're surviving, when um, they're just managing to muddle along, or when they're thriving. How can we help people shift through those phases? And then in the workshops, we will always get people to focus on one area of their well-being, that understanding what is it they can do. And what quite often physical is a pillar, but I think community is one that really often comes through. Um, and and I think it's really a powerful way to have that sense of what you're going to do, having thought through things when you're in the right frame of mind. So I think that we're going to be sharing the echo approach, but also the resilience navigator and the Clifton Strengths tool and saboteurs when we come together in the workshop. What would be really amazing would be to bring together lots more tools that we've found that work with engineers, less of the fluffy stuff, more of the
Yeah,
really pragmatic, what works kind of thing. So that's, so I just meant
exactly. And
remind.
for you,
So
you
we
go.
do, yeah. So that we'll be coming together in a conference Aston on the 26th of June, and there was more information and um the on this link that I'm just putting in the chat, and I'll put it onto the LinkedIn page too. But we're also running train the trainer workshops, and these are as valid for higher education as they are for the workplace. And so, if you're interested, please reach out, have a chat, have a conversation. Sometimes when you work in a tiny business, things can feel a bit lonely and isolating. Just working on research as well.
I'll say lonely and isolating is where I get my energy from, because you're talking about going out and making friends and being out and dangerously riding bicycles down strands and things. I can visualize that. But for me, like I have to pick at what drains me. Things like paperwork and social interactions will drain my batteries. There's a type of person called a joy vampire that I'm very sensitive to. So someone who is openly negative or loudly negative about things all the time, even regardless of what it is, will drain me in seconds flat. To the point where I can actually be quite tearful having encountered one. So, so I have to actually pretty much go and find somewhere entirely by myself in silence. An isolation tank would be the best thing ever. Um, or actually just fall asleep, which sounds ridiculous, but if I've been at a big meeting where I've had to be fairly active, I'll be exhausted. I just have to go and have a sleep. Joy vampire, definitely. And even like music and singing, that does energize me. It's like music and singing always does. I always feel better with that. And I'm teaching myself harp at the moment, and the vibration of the harp across, because you lean the harp onto your chest, the vibration of the chords actually calms me down without even playing. And this is my excuse for not playing properly, is it doesn't matter what I'm playing on that thing. It just calms you down right away. So
That's the
my
vagus nerve that'll be getting the
it's
vibration.
just like,
Mm.
wait, oh, this is great. Blink, blink, blink. It's fabulous. That's gone quicker than last time, I think. It's gone by so fast.
I know an hour doesn't last any time at all. So we've put the links to those of you who think they might be interested in our workshop, and in if your organisations are interested, that we can run train the trainer workshop to bring together all of the tools and resources. But fundamentally, it's giving the engineering community a toolkit for themselves, but also for those people in their teams and organisations, that is super practical. Thank you so much for joining us, for taking the time out of your day, and we hope we're thinking that we might make this a more regular spot to bring together and join across the United Kingdom from the south to the north, and here make enable more voices to be heard in this space. So thank you for joining us, and
Thank you.
have a good rest of the week.